Now, I did get the chance to look at some figures from America, and I just want to talk a little bit about beef and about some of the things that David has touched on, because I want to pull out some of the things that are changing, and I concur with the expanding emerging market and the static developed market. So here's a forecast for what global beef production looks like in 2 or 3 years' time. We can talk about all of these and we can spend some time on it. But the changes in production that are taking place are quite seismic. And we need to think about, if we're operating here in the EU, and as David has pointed out, the amount of sort of beef production is falling, what sort of demands and challenges are around that, and where are those markets? And are we happy that we want to focus on a home market, or are we happy that we want to do something else? I am going to go through 3 case studies a little bit later in my presentation, and I will touch on a business that focuses entirely on its home market. In fact, I'll spend some time on 2 of them. But I want you to think about how are you going to tap into some of the things that David's talked about. And if you look at beef consumption, again, these figures are from the US, then, you know, we can have a debate about what that looks like. But some of the changes that are taking place in beef consumption, are they an opportunity? Are they a threat? How are you going to capitalise on these? Are you able to service them, as David just talked about? Now, ladies and gentlemen, in your pack you will have one of these. I would like you to, if you don't mind, just get it out, and I don't want you to read it from cover to cover. That's bedtime reading later. But I just want to start and talk about some case studies to try and help you understand and think about some of the challenges that are actually in the sector that we're talking about. So the first page I'm going to ask you to go to is page 55. And this is just, if you like, a forward budget on a farm business that, if you like, is slightly theoretical, but we have, as we've done with this booklet for the last 38 years, we try and look forward for fairly typical farm enterprises, and what I'm trying to do here is look forward at the type of prices and the type of markets and the type of cash flow generation that this business will generate. And this is fairly typical. You might argue, you know, that you have a few more cows or a few less cows, or a few more ewes, or even more cereals. But the interesting thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, is that this business, pre-subsidy, is making a sizable shortfall in cash. Now, whatever you might think, that statement that I've just said is probably the most fundamental thing you could say to your bank manager, because cash makes the world go round, ladies and gentlemen. And being able to understand what's happening in that business is fairly crucial. After subsidy and support, especially single farm payment, and after drawings, it makes a modest surplus of £5,000. Now, the one thing that I want you to think about, ladies and gentlemen, is whether you agree whether that's right or wrong. Go home and have a look at the business that you're involved with at home, and you will see that a significant proportion of your bottom line profit is actually coming from single farm payment. And therefore, in the lowland sense, that leaves me feeling slightly uncomfortable, because going forward through your farming careers, it probably won't happen with this round of Common Agricultural Policy Review, but I would suspect that by the time you get to David's age, you might actually be farming with significantly less single farm payment, direct support, even zero farm support than at the moment. So the one thing that I want you to start and think about is how are you going to structure your business so that you become less dependent on that than it might appear at the moment. And there's no doubt about it, ladies and gentlemen, that's the most challenging thing I've said this morning. That is incredibly difficult at the moment. given all the things that David's talked about, given the opportunity that's in the marketplace, and given the pressure that the customer is under, given the wider economic outlook. We can't just suddenly expect beef prices to double overnight. It's not going to be as simple as that. Now, I'm saying that because there are examples where farmers are making money over and above single farm payment simply because they aren't getting any. I want to talk to you about those in a minute. But I do want you to think about how you go ahead and farm your business given that scenario at the moment. If we turn over the page and look at page 56 in that little booklet, there is a similar story in the upland. So if anybody's from the, if you like, the less favoured areas of England, Wales or Scotland, then actually the actual deficit is even greater. Now, thinking further forward, I can't see the uplands of Britain being without support in the future. They actually get more support for very obvious reasons. It's quite hard to increase the amount of farm output off these particular localities. But again, the same message I would suggest is true, and I make no bones about this. This type of business in the future might still get environmental support, it might get location support. I'm trying not to use the terminology that's in play at the moment. It might even get some environmental support. In fact, it probably will. But will it get the same level of single farm payment? I'm not absolutely sure. And therefore, what I'm trying to get you to think about in this particular presentation is how do you go about running your farm business so that you are less dependent on this subject. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope on a Monday morning at about 11:45, I hope I've made you feel pretty challenged about this. And it does feel a little bit like this, doesn't it? It does feel a bit like sort of Mission Impossible. It's pretty tough. But what I want to do now is take you through 3 case studies where I think they are completely bucking the trend. And what I want you to do, and I'm not expecting all your parents and business partners to write to me after this presentation, but I do expect you to challenge the status quo about what happens at home. Because we've got to set up and establish a farming business and a farming industry that can thrive and seize the opportunity that David's talked about, and make sure that if you're going to put your effort into it and hard work, which you all will, you get the type of return that you rightly are due. And if you don't, as an industry, believe it, somebody else will take that market. So this is exactly the type of commercial challenge that I face every day in my career, and I think you will face and prosper from in the future. The 3 case studies that I want to talk about cover 3 different aspects. They are 3 that I chose, that I know about. They aren't statistically significant. These are just 3 businesses that I know personally in terms of having a banking relationship with them. And I want to talk to you about some of the things that come out of these businesses so that you start and get the flavour of what I'm thinking about. One business I want to talk about seizes the international marketplace. One business doesn't get any single farm payment. They are allowed and they can claim environmental scheme support and SSI type support. I'm not using the jargon because I don't want you to find out who it is, but this business is operating absolutely successfully and down to farming and farming alone. And the third business is one which is harnessing a local marketplace. So let's just think about the first one. This business operates in the hills, has a traditional beef and sheep system as you would associate with any of the hills and any of the businesses that you see in the hills. However, ladies and gentlemen, the overhead cost base is absolutely pared down to the essential without the elaborate. So it's a bit like going to see the farmer who's just bought a new tractor. And I ask him, why did you buy that? He said, Alan, there's a difference between needs and wants. I'm talking about needs, ladies and gentlemen. This farm business is reasonably large scale, of about 200 suckler cows and over 2,000 sheep. But actually, it's run very efficiently, and if I asked that farmer what is his cost of production for both the lamb and the beef, ladies and gentlemen, he knows it down to a penny. So the second thing I want you to challenge yourselves about is, do you know your cost of production? Now, if I asked you for a share of hands in the audience, I'm not being funny, I'd be surprised if it was 10%. You have to know your cost of production. Because when you sell to your ultimate customer, you need to know that you're making a sensible margin, or you're narrowing the gap on that. Now, this farm owner has had the privilege of, if you like, doing the sort of job that David has done, and he has built up an international network when he's travelled the world. And the great thing that he did when he travelled the world, he kept in touch with all the hotels and restaurants where he ate. And now what does he do? He sells that top-end beef and lamb in hotel chains around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, he's achieving 4 or 5 times the market price for his beef and his lamb, because he is meeting that high-end customer marketplace, but he's only been able to make a profit because he's got his costs absolutely sorted. So this is delivering to that very, very niche customer, and he's playing on a unique set of circumstances. I wanted to tell you about him because if you saw the farm, it just looks like every farm. But what he's done is he's applied his knowledge and he's delivered something which is absolutely brilliant at the customer end. His farming is probably no better than the best that is in this room. But what he's doing is really leveraging off that opportunity. Now, he's now based on the farm. Think about what I've just said. His big risk is that he's got to find some way of staying in touch with those customers. And the one thing he's now thinking about doing is developing an internet, and if you like, a WebEx type process to stay in touch with some of those international customers. He's now farming. He can't travel the world like he used to. So he's got to find ways of staying in touch. And he's genuinely worried about how he's going to maintain his market. So he's doing very well at the moment, but staying in touch with that customer is going to be crucial.